Hello guys, namaste, Perev, Dumelang, Sanbonani, Huyemor, Ni Hao, Akwaba, Ndiepi. Anyway guys, this is lesson number 4 of our book. Anyway, this is not my book, let me repeat again. This is a book from Shri Ram Infotech, and if you want to find out more about this guys, you can check under my video description. You'll find all the information regarding this guys. Anyway, here we are. There on top it says normal resistance on coil without the CPU or RAM. Keep in mind, this is a resistance that you should be able to get without the CPU or RAM, because if you connect a RAM, obviously there will be more resistance and it's going to affect your results when you are using a multimeter. Guys, it is very important to check those coils. These are the coils, you know, those are gray things there on the motherboard. Those are output coils. You have two MOSFETs. Next to two MOSFETs, you will have you will have a coil. This is a PWM power supply. This is a power supply for almost everything, even a battery as well. A battery is not being charged by the 19 volts direct. No, not at all. The battery is being charged by the two MOSFET that converts the 19 volts into a lower voltage and then charges the battery. All right. And again, when you are measuring the resistance there, you get a value of above 100 ohms. If it's less than 100 ohms, please go ahead, change one of the MOSFET. And it's always the case that the MOSFET shorted to ground, the MOSFET connected to ground with one side, the one losing the value. And again, the sum will be hundreds or less. And again, it happens that both of them they are losing value, but in most cases, it's the MOSFET connected to ground is the one losing the value. So you know how to check a MOSFET. I've done a video, guys. Videos actually, plenty of my videos. Go and check my previous videos. You will see where I showed everyone how to check a MOSFET. You check a MOSFET, you check that guy, and you remove it. One of the MOSFETs should be 500 and something ohms, and the bad one will be around 100 or even 200. You'll have to change it. Actually, both MOSFETs should give you 500 or 400 ohms. Some will give you 300, but more important, you should get 500 to 400, depending on the MOSFET. Because again, if one of them is bad and they will give you a value that is around 150, even 150 ohm is bad, guys. Believe me, I've dealt with some cases where I was receiving 180, 150, and the PC was not working proper. After changing one of the MOSFETs, the value went up to 500 to 400 and the machine worked. Please guys, I'm sure you are checking this. Even on the 3.3 volts, guys, this thing, you have to check it everywhere. You have to check on the output coil, on the coil. And again, let me tell you why coils are so important. Coils, they are called inductors. They induce the power. They induce the sparks, because the MOSFET, when they switch on and off, they create sparks maybe of 3.3 volts. And again, that spark, it's been used on the coil. The coil gives power of the 3.3 volts by using by using the sparks, because we all know that coils, they create a magnetic field. Okay, they create an electromagnetic field. They create the thing which induce the sparks of 3.3 or the sparks of 5 volts or the spark of 1.5 volts. But again, keep in mind, the coils, they induce the power. You should know the function of the coil, right? And let me tell you something. If you take a coil on the motherboard, remove it, and then use a pliers to break it into pieces, you will see that inside there's a rolled wire. There's a coil, there's a rolled coil, there's a wire which is rolled, and it will give you it will give you a coil. That's why we call them a coil. Nice. Let me repeat again one more time. Coils or conductors, they induce the power, they give power to something. Okay, they give power to something because of their function or because of their thing, of which is what? Of which is electromagnetic field. So with that kind of a reaction, they induce what? They induce the power. I'm not sure if someone is getting this, but again, do a research, read more about the PWM, or it's simple, just watch one of my previous videos. You will see where I explained the MOSFETs and the power supplies, how the power supply switches on and off. But again, don't worry, don't mind, relax, just chill. You will see on the next page. See the next page. Okay, this is the laptops. Okay, the next page, they show you the CPU. The CPU uses what? 1 volt and 80 amps, and it uses what? 1.05 volts VCCP. VCCP, as I've said on my previous videos, is generated separately. And VTT CPU. VTT is so important, and it goes into a RAM as well. And then MCH, of which is not bridge, it uses this its voltages 3.3 volts, 1.8 volts, and 1.5. RTC, it means real-time clock. There's RTC here, real-time clock. Guys, it's so important to have RTC. RTC can be provided by CMOS battery or a laptop itself. Very, very, very important. And we have CO chip, startup chip. I'm just summarizing as well. These are all the type of RAMs. DDR1 will use 2.25 volts for VTT and 1.25 volts for VTT. As I've said, VTT is also used on the RAM because it's RAM actual. And 3.3 volts. Okay, now let's go into DDR2. DDR2 is 1.8 volts. Of the VTT for DDR2 is 0.9 volts. Let's move on, and DDR3 is less, 1.5 volts. And guys, remember the aim of technology. The aim of technology is to make everything to use less power. That's why when you see on the first RAM DDR1, it was using more power because it's all tech. The more we move on with the new technology, you will see the aim of the tech that they're trying by all means to make sure that the circuit uses what? Less power. And 3 is 1.5 volts, unlike the other old RAMs. And the latest DDR3, of which is DDR3L, you will see on your RAM is written there PC3L. Be very, very, very careful when you are changing those RAM, because DDR3 won't work on DDR3L or PC3L. It won't work. So that's why we should be very, very, very careful. I hope you can see again that the more we move with technology, the less we use power. Anyway, this is it, guys. I'm tired of explaining one thing over and over again, but you can see as well the BIOS, the LAN, they are using 3.3 BIOS, 3.3 USB, 5 volts, card reader 3.3, clock 3.3 volts, which can be supported by a CMOS battery or the laptop itself. DVD writer, guys, you can see this stuff. Anyway, let's check the next lesson. I'm just summarizing for my lovely brothers. Okay, now let's check the CPU. We have all the different kinds of CPU. Even with the CPU, it's gonna be the same issue, the same case. The older the CPU, the more it uses the power. The newer the CPU, less and the lesser the power consumption. That's the aim of what? That's the aim of technology. It's to consume less power. As you can see as well, the 4th gen and the 5th gen, of which are the latest CPUs. Not latest, let's go now. The latest is 12th gen and 11th gen. Those are latest. But back then, 5th gen, they were the best. And they were using 1.35 volts, while the 2nd gen and the 3rd gen, they were using 1.5 volts. And as you can see as well, judging by the CPU, the old stuff, they were using what? They were using more power, right? And the CPU, anyway, let me show you something. The CPU here is written, they're saying 3.3 volts on the CPU. I'm pretty sure you're even surprised. 3.3 volts on the CPU, on this latest CPU. How come? How come the 3.3 volts on the latest CPUs? Let me tell you a story, okay? I don't like the CPUs, and they make me sick. I won't lie to you guys. These new ones, these ones like this, the same shape like this, they make me sick, guys. Very, very sick. I hate them. Why I don't like them? I feel like this was the mistake that Intel did. I don't really think they did a good thing here by integrating the PCH into what? Into the CPU. The tiny thing, the silver thing is PCH. The long one is CPU. So now the CPU now has the 3.3 on it. I'm sure you're surprised. The 3.3 on the CPU, but it's on the PCH side, and it's always getting shorted. Always, imagine. And when this thing gets shorted, all machine is dead. You will have to change what? Change or replace the entire CPU. Anyway, guys, I hope you are learning. And this 1.3 volts is for the PCH as well, but some are for the CPU, some are for graphics as well, but don't confuse. The CPU normally uses 1 volt or less, 2, but again it depends. But I'm not happy with this 3.3 volts on the CPU. I don't like this check the Intel did here, because this 3.3 always getting shorted by what? By this PCH within the CPU. You will get a straight shot to ground there normally. So be careful when you're diagnosing your boards. Anyway, I love you so much, guys. This is it. Bye bye.